Hey folks, it's Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this case, the most requested video in the last few days. How do you prepare for an attack like the one you saw in Israel? And it's something that I've covered before in other videos. As you see, it's gonna be somewhat of the same. There's gonna be a few little things for you to consider here, so do stick around. But this is nothing new in terms of how do you defend yourself against well-armed, well-trained attackers. It's not gonna be easy. Obviously, the first thing you want to have is a tool to defend yourself. It's gonna be a rifle, it's gonna be a handgun. If the only thing you have is a handgun, okay, I do suggest getting yourself a rifle. May that be an AR style AK-47. If you live in the United States or Europe, it's gonna be most likely an AR style, the one that is by far the most popular and the one you want to go for. Remember also that without the adequate training, that's gonna be doing you very little good. That's why I recommend having proper training by a qualified instructor with a solid reputation in the firearms community. And if that's not available, get yourself 3 survival skills where I explain this stuff that I was taught in different classes from such instructors. The basics usually are the same, and as long as you practice it, it's not going to be as good as having a proper class, but it's going to be close enough. It's going to be much more helpful than having no knowledge whatsoever. Now, I also recommend bugging out and relocating, the second book there, because I explain some of the approaches in terms of finding safe places to live in, and also how to, well, bug out when staying is no longer an option wherever it is that you are. Now, having a rifle will give you a big advantage versus only having a handgun, as you well know. And this is more specifically for well-trained, well-armed attackers, where this may make a bigger difference. Now, having something, knowing how to use it, there's no guarantee. You're talking about an extremely dangerous situations based on what we saw in Israel. There's been people that managed to successfully defend themselves against multiple attackers. There's people that unfortunately fail to do so, and it's sometimes about having the gun, having the training, and a matter of luck and what kind of planning you had going into this or not. But yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it is. There's no guarantees. I will take my chances with the option of fighting back if, left with no other choice. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. Also, it's interesting to notice that Israel is one of the least armed countries in the world. It's ranking below 100. It's actually less armed than, of course, not only the United States, but less armed than most European countries, which is something that probably should be revisited as a way of keeping the population safe, given the chance of attacks like these ones. But yeah, it's not the case that everyone in Israel is a trained guy with access to a firearm. Many of these guys do, and women, both men and women, have military training, but they don't have the actual gun. So if you have the training and you don't have the gun, apparently it's quite difficult to get a handgun, even more so to get a long gun. I don't know exactly how the laws go, but I have read enough to understand that's the case. It's not easily available. It's actually quite hard, and that's why the population is pretty much not nearly as armed as you would assume. Get yourself, of course, body armor, and you definitely want to have rifle plates. Soft panels are okay for home defense and that sort of thing, where you're less likely to be facing rifles, even though that is increasingly the case, unfortunately so. But you want to have rifle plates in your vest. You want to set up your vest with pouches for magazines, the flashlight, a pistol holster, your blowout kit, your first aid kit in case you get injured. You want to have a tourniquet. You want to have hemostatic gauze, and the typical contents that you have in these first aid kits. I strongly recommend having a radio, and in some like a kibbutz or settlement or group of houses or farm or whatever the case is. Right now I'm thinking of the case of the South African farmers that are often attacked. You want to have people communicating with one another. So it's something we've talked about before. Having a radio, knowing how to use it, having your neighbors have one and know how to use it as well, so as to coordinate in a proper manner when something like this happens. Night vision would be nice, sure, of course. It's quite expensive, and in this case, it happened in the middle of the day, broad daylight. Now, it is also true that if you're being attacked in a household, it may be dark inside, so you may want to have a flashlight mounted on your weapon. It's affordable enough enough. It's not super expensive. I recommend having one of the little petrol tactical flashlights. Soldiers, special forces, they use these things all the time. Super affordable, super lightweight, and yet super useful. Not only do you have a white light that's allowing you to use your hands freely, you also have a red light if you want to have more of a low emission of light with that red light, right? Night vision, better, $20. It's still nice, okay? You also have options of maybe you cannot afford an AR or a long gun that's more expensive or just not available. For example, if you're watching this in the middle of London, you may wait, oh yes, Fernando, you damn fool. Do you think I can buy an AR here? Well, you dude over there, you can buy yourself a shotgun. Yes, that's the advice from Joe Biden. I would actually recommend getting yourself a semi-automatic shotgun such as a Hudson with a 7+1 capacity. You have shells, that's affordable enough, the gun is affordable, the training is available for practical shooting, and it's gonna be a lot better than being completely unarmed. My point is, no matter where you are in the world, even in some of the most restricted countries in terms of firearms, even if you cannot have that, in UK you can have yourself a shotgun license and buy a shotgun that fires 12 gauge. It's a lot better than having nothing at all. You want to have a bag that's actually a British go bag for your extra ammunition in a situation like the one in Israel. You may want to have a lot of ammunition. This is one of those rare cases in which, 10 loaded magazines, 12, whatever it is, the more you have, the better, and you probably will not have everything in your vest. Probably you want to have extra there in your, you cannot fit, what is it, like loaded, it's like 7 mags or something like that. Well, you probably want to have more in your go bag, in your ammunition bag. It's actually a nice model, and if you find it in the surplus market, it's worth getting. Radio, we talked about flashlight. I would strongly recommend having, if you have a helmet, of course, if you have it mounted with your night vision, fantastic. I recommend having a proper gas mask, and this is the GSR that I've shown so many times in previous videos. Why? Because this may be an attack that involves chemicals. It involves a dirty bomb. It involves a number of things that people with very twisted minds are constantly thinking about, and one day, just like people in Israel were surprised, you may be surprised yourself. And these things are on the table, and for that you want something that allows you to breathe when deadly chemicals or radioactive particles are in the air. Strongly recommended getting that for this kind of preparation. A VIP bag, it's sometimes called like a go bag. I like the VIP bag in terms of very important papers bag, your documents, your passport, your emergency cash, whatever thing you need in case of I'm not taking anything else. This goes also for people like when Russia was invading and people that were escaping from Kiev, they had like their little travel bags with clothes and a bag with documents, something maybe like a fanny pack attached to your body. That's something that may be worth considering. Some of those traveler vests or traveler belts where you keep everything hitting under your clothes, those make perfect sense too. So as you see, there's a bunch of things you probably have already, but start thinking about it this way. Now, I want to also talk about what happens if I'm on the other side of this conflict. What if you're in the Gaza Strip and you're getting bombed to pieces? Oh yeah, well, what is it you do? Well, you're not going to be using your AR. You're not going to be using any kind of fire. You're just having bombs drop over your head, and you're finding ways to not get killed. Now, probably this is the only bag that will do you any good. And I always think of the conversation with Selko when talking about these things is best thing is not even be there, either in the Israel side or the Gaza side. Whatever the case is, it's better if you're not even there. Now, this is something I cover in Bugging Out and Relocating, especially in the relocating part. I do not like living in a country which has such complicated conflicts. Life is short, live whatever way you want. That's very much on you, but avoiding conflict, especially when it's so much of a thing, when it's a way of life almost, right? You probably want to have a safer, better place to live in. I get it. Your life, your way of living, that's really up to you. But in a place like the Gaza Strip specifically, yeah, that would be definitely a place I try to get myself out of there as soon as I can. Some people are allowed to leave and work on the Israeli side and go back and so on. I would really make a maximum effort to get myself and my family out of there as fast as possible. Now, it's true that it's been bombed in the center. And people have been bombed in the border close to the border in Egypt. So what I'm thinking right now is, if I'm finding myself in that situation, I would probably try to look for the least populated areas of that strip, because the way I see it is the part that's less likely to be bombed. In the middle of a field, in the middle of close to the border, whatever it is, some place where there's not a mass of people that are more of a rich target environment for dropping a bomb, if that's what you're trying to avoid. Okay, like what, 6,000 bombs dropped in the last few days? So yeah, you're kind of looking at a worst case scenario by all means. And of course, without water, without electricity, it's gonna be very, very difficult. Some amount of food, but look at this in this way. What if you had your house with your supplies, it all got blown up? No matter if you had a year worth of food, you're still screwed. I insist, get yourself out of there as soon as you can, and don't wait for the worst possible moment like this to make a run for it. Okay, guys, that's all for now. I hope this advice was useful. See you next time. Take care.